Chosen one. You thought God was silent, didn't you? But what if I told you He never stopped working for you? This message is not random. It's the sign you asked for in your prayers, the one that arrives when you're just about to give up. Because I know lately, you've been feeling tired. You've lost people you never thought would walk away. You've questioned your worth, your purpose, even your faith. But listen closely. What felt like rejection was actually protection. What looked like delay was divine timing. Heaven has been preparing you in silence. And now, you're about to step into the season where everything starts to make sense. So before we go any further, take a deep breath. If this message touches your spirit, type 999 in the comments. That's heaven's number for completion and new beginnings. And subscribe so you don't miss what's next, because the signs coming your way are too sacred to ignore. Why losing everything exposes who you really are. Everyone thinks they're strong until life hits where it really hurts. You know what I mean, right? That moment when everything you built, your plans, your security, your version of "this is who I am," just collapses. Not slowly, suddenly. Mark thought he was safe. He was 48, a mechanical engineer who had worked at the same company for 22 years. He'd never been written up, never caused trouble. He showed up early, stayed late, helped train the new guys. Then one morning, he got an email with the subject line, "Position eliminated." No warning, no thank you, just done. Lisa's story isn't that different. At 55, she had already been through enough. Raising 2 kids, managing her husband's chemo appointments, holding everything together when it felt like life was falling apart. Then one day, it did fall apart. Her husband passed. And months later, when her youngest moved to another state, she came home to a house that had never felt so silent. Both Mark and Lisa believed what most of us do. If I work hard, if I'm kind, if I do everything right, I'll be safe. But life doesn't work on our contracts. It doesn't destroy us. It exposes us. It strips away everything that isn't real until we come face to face with the truth. We never had control. We only had the illusion of it. That's the first shock most people never see coming. We think control keeps us safe, but it's actually the source of our fear. Because the moment you build your identity around things you can lose, you start living afraid. When life takes away your script, that's when you finally discover if you can act without lines. The first collapse, emotional freefall. When the fall begins, it doesn't feel poetic. It feels like panic. Your body reacts as if you've been hit by a car. Adrenaline surging, chest tight, vision blurry. It's the same physiological storm, whether it's bad news from a doctor, a spouse walking out, or that email that ends a career. Sarah, remember her? The friend I mentioned earlier, once told me she started recording herself at night because she wanted to hear what breaking sounds like. And she noticed something strange. Her voice sounded defeated, as if she had already accepted she was done. That moment of hearing herself from the outside shifted everything. She realized she was still breathing, still here. And she whispered 3 words that changed her life. "I'm not done." That's where healing starts. Not with some motivational quote, not with forced gratitude, but with the simple, quiet recognition. I'm still alive. The hidden curriculum of pain. Pain is not the test, it's the teacher. Every heartbreak, every loss, carries a lesson wrapped in discomfort. But most of us rush to escape it. We want to find the meaning too fast. We say things like, "It happened for a reason," before we've even allowed ourselves to cry. Tom, A former Marine I once met learned this the hard way. He'd survived combat, but came home with nightmares that wouldn't end. He told me, "I thought being strong meant never breaking down." Then one day, his young son found him crying in the garage. Instead of hiding it, Tom said, "Yeah, buddy, Daddy's sad today." That was the first time he truly began to heal. Strength isn't about getting over things quickly. It's about staying with the pain long enough to understand what it's trying to teach you. The silence and the vanishing crowd. And then comes the silence. You notice it, don't you? When your world falls apart, your phone stops ringing. The people who said, "Call me if you need anything," disappear. It's not cruelty, it's fear. People don't know how to sit with someone's pain because it reminds them of their own. Lisa told me she started talking to the plants in her backyard just to hear her own voice again. And somewhere in that quiet, she realized she wasn't really talking to the plants. She was talking to her soul. So let me ask you, when was the last time you sat in silence without reaching for your phone? Because that silence you hate so much might be your soul's classroom. The real enemy isn't pain, it's hardness. Metal breaks when it's too rigid. Souls do too. After loss, most people build emotional armor. I won't be hurt again. Mark did that. After losing his job, he became distant, cold. One night, his daughter said, "Dad, you're here, but you left us months ago." And that hit harder than the layoff ever did. True strength isn't being made of stone. It's being like water, soft, adaptable, and unstoppable. Water doesn't resist the shape of the world. It moves with it and still finds its way through. So, if everything's falling apart right now, maybe it's not destruction. Maybe it's the water inside you learning to flow again. Because after the fall comes something even more mysterious, the rebuilding you never saw coming. But to rise again, you have to first understand what the silence was truly for. How to turn breakdowns into breakthroughs. Softness as power. You know what's crazy? After everything you've been through, your softness is still here. And maybe, just maybe, that's not your weakness. That's your superpower. We live in a world that tells you to be strong, to move on, to toughen up. But strength doesn't always roar. Sometimes it looks like choosing kindness again after being hurt. It looks like saying, "I still believe in love, even when life tried to harden you." Take Sarah, for example. 2 years after her divorce, she couldn't sleep. She said she felt useless, like her life had lost its shape. One day, instead of sitting alone in that silence, she started volunteering at a women's shelter downtown. Not because she wanted to be noble, but because she just couldn't stand feeling numb anymore. Week by week, as she listened to other women's stories, pain, betrayal, resilience, she began to heal. She told me, "I came to help, but I think they saved me." And that's the truth most people miss. Healing doesn't happen in isolation. It happens in connection. We don't heal when we hide. We heal when we love again. When we show up for others, even with our cracks showing. So if you're watching this and thinking, "I can't open up again, I'll just get hurt," I want you to remember this line. You don't heal alone. You heal when you love again. Your scars are your signature. Look down at your scars, emotional or physical, and realize they are not proof of your failure. They are your signature. Every scar says, "I lived." Every one means, "I made it through something that was supposed to destroy me." I once met John, a 62-year-old man who lost everything in the 2008 financial crash. His business collapsed. His marriage fell apart. He told me he was too ashamed to leave the house for months. But years later, he started mentoring young entrepreneurs, teaching them not just how to build wealth, but how to lose with grace. He said, "My bankruptcy taught me humility no MBA could." That line stayed with me because the very thing that broke him became the reason others trusted him. Here's the twist. What you're most ashamed of might be the thing people need most from you. Your vulnerability doesn't make you less credible. It makes you human. We connect through our cracks, not through perfection. So instead of hiding your story, what if you shared it? Because somewhere, someone is praying for a story just like yours to remind them they can survive too. Let me ask you this. What if the story you're hiding is the one someone desperately needs to hear? The recalibration? Nobody sees. Most people think the big transformation moment is flashy. A big new job, a sudden success, a big comeback. But the real rebirth? It's quiet. It's the morning you wake up and decide to try again. Lisa, after losing her husband, started each day whispering, "I don't know what's next, but I'll meet it with grace." It wasn't a grand gesture. It was faith in small daily steps. Mark, a former corporate exec, lost his position during COVID. He told me he felt invisible for months. Until one day, he started cooking dinner for his kids again. He said, "It wasn't about food. It was about remembering I still mattered." You see, rebirth rarely looks glamorous. It's not about building a bigger life. It's about building a truer one. You stop chasing the life you planned and start living the life that's unfolding. That's the recalibration nobody sees. When your external world is still messy, but your inner world finally feels peaceful. The moment of rebirth. And then one morning, maybe months, maybe years later, you'll look in the mirror and something shifts. You won't see the broken version anymore. You'll see the one who survived. It's not that the past disappears. It's that it no longer defines you. This is what psychologists call integration. When your story no longer controls you, but fuels you. So instead of saying, "I need to move on," what if you whispered, "I'll move with what happened"? Because that's what rebirth really is. Not starting over, but starting from everything that made you who you are. If you've made it this far, maybe this message found you for a reason. You've fallen, yes, but maybe this fall was never the end. It was the rising. And in the next part, we'll talk about how to rebuild your light, how to step into your next chapter, not just healed, but whole. Maybe you're in that valley right now. Maybe everything around you feels like it's falling apart. But what if this isn't punishment? What if it's preparation? You see, the hardest chapters of your life, the nights you cried alone, the seasons where nothing made sense, those are the very moments that are shaping you for what's next. Because purpose doesn't come from comfort. It's born in the breaking. And sometimes, God lets everything fall apart, so you can finally rebuild it the right way. So if you're still walking through that fire, don't rush out. Stay just long enough to let it refine you, to let it make you gold. You are not behind. You are becoming. And one day soon, you'll look back and realize, this valley was holy ground. If this message found you today, it's not random. It's a divine appointment. Subscribe to this channel so you don't miss the next message heaven has for you, because your story isn't over yet.